I'm the director of the Ronald Silverman Gallery. I still am not very familiar with this name because this was the department gallery for how many years? 40 years. And then it became University Gallery 3 years ago. And then this year, in May, we have a generous endowment, and we named the gallery as Ronald H. Silverman Art Gallery. And happen to be tonight, we have the Silverman family here. So I'm very happy that you're here, and I really appreciate your visiting here. If this is first time you came, then I want you to come back next time and many more. And I know it's not that easy to find this gallery, right? Some of you are like screaming, I know. So I am like constantly working with the university. Is there any way we can do something so when people arrive on the campus, they can find this gallery easily, right? So I think we're gonna be better sometime soon. So promise, right? So you have to come. And then when you leave, there's a whole year calendar on the desk, and you can take that. And there's my business card, so you can always bug me and ask me, and whatever you need when you come here, I can assist you. I can arrange the parking. I can let you know like how to get here, right? So please do so. So most importantly, I am so happy to have this exhibition here, and it's an honor to have it, and especially these two, Cynthia Pena and Jill Moniz, is worldly known and respected curators, and I'm honored to work with them. And then especially these artists from 8 different countries, 10 artists, right? So I cannot imagine how the whole process was happening with different personalities and different personas, different aesthetics. But the show looks really nice to me. Like I shouldn't say that, right? This is my place, but it is really nice, and I think the space, it really worked out well. Yeah, the owners work well. So I really enjoyed, and then we already have more than 100 people came to visit in a week, so that's really good, right? So here's the Cynthia Pena, and then here's Jill Moniz, and I'm gonna leave that to them to introduce the artists. Thank you.
It's me? Okay, it's my job today to just describe to you what happened. So 3 years ago or so, 4 years ago, oh my gosh, we were talking about what a crazy idea it would be to have artists collaborate, because artists don't collaborate so much anymore. And wouldn't it be even crazier if we got artists from around the world to try to come up with a visual language that represented them individually and culturally, and then ask them to somehow share that language and communicate in that language with other artists doing the same thing that they hadn't met, that lived in other countries, to see if there was a way to kind of map memory and to find a cultural resonance that only visual arts can do, I think, for people. So communicate beyond written language or oral language with images, with shapes, with abstraction. And so we selected a group of artists, and it turned out to be all men. It was completely a fluke. But Miguel was at the table with us when we conceived of this project, so of course he was automatically one of the artists. But so the project started, and we were shipping canvases around the world, and as we were getting feedback, we thought, wouldn't it be interesting to see what women would do with this project? And so we then we selected 5 women and asked them to do the same thing and sent canvases around the world. And I think what has happened, I mean, it's a really interesting project and an experiment, and that's the way I think we are thinking about it is as an experiment. That would be really great to replicate and see how that works out, especially with the women and the men. But the idea that you can communicate your own desires and your own feelings and your own cultural identity, and then let yourself go. And have someone, encourage someone, or demand that someone else interpret that content and add their own voice to it, and add their own language to it. And so you can see as you go through that some people are better at sharing than others. Some people, I think, did a really wonderful job in making space for other people. And I think that you can see a lot of hierarchies in terms of cultural awareness and understanding, or misunderstanding. And I think that's all part of what makes this project so interesting and unique, is that some of the work isn't quite aesthetically finished, but it does show what happens when you have a group of people sharing a canvas and what happens in terms of that idea of sharing. One of the other things that we had wanted them to do was to document their ideas and their feelings and their thoughts. I got a lot of calls from artists when they got a canvas, and they'd say, "What the hell do you want me to do with this? I'm not touching this," you know? Some felt the work was so beautiful that they didn't want to intervene, but that was their job. So it was their job to figure out how to add their own voice to this sort of symphony that was being...
Sorry, how you decide who will be the first and who will add and which order it went?
Ronald, Penna.
Okay.
Rocky wrote an algorithm.
Yes, he created the schedule.
Okay.
That made sure each artist was first, second, third, fourth, and fifth.
Each one?
Each one.
Okay.
So each artist had a role all the way through the process. So they had to determine how to add their voices to it. And I think that they did it in a really beautiful way. The other thing that I think is really important is that you do see and you can recognize when you spend time with the work, each artist's contribution throughout the work. So you can find Miguel Osuna, Yasunari, and Anna, and Yuki in all of the work that they participated in. And that was an absolute rule that we had, that you could not obliterate the canvas altogether. You could not obliterate what came before, but that you had to leave something to show that you were in conversation with these other artists. And so the project opened in Italy, in Naples, in the hometown of Cinzia Renato and Carla Viparelli and Dino Izzo, and now it's here in our hometown. And then it will travel on to Holland, to the Netherlands, to Den Haag, and then end up in Senegal. So it's hitting, and possibly Tokyo, I don't know. So it's hitting the spaces and places of the artists who participated, and that's a wonderful thing. But I'd like for Cinzia to introduce all the artists, and maybe they can
So
say their
starting
feelings.
from my right, there is Yasunari Nakatomi from Japan, Miguel Osuna, who has a deep root in Mexico, but he is living here, and Ana Rodriguez, the same deep root in Mexico and living here, and Yuki Kamide from Japan. The other artists obviously are not present. We were expecting Kinea from Senegal, but maybe she will come mid-September, not now. The other artists couldn't come because they are busy in their countries. But I think that the most important thing that we wanted to transfer to young generation, and that's why we are looking for universities and public spaces, because we want to share the concept, the basic concept, in a political or ethical moment of our life. 2019 with so many separation and so many fight in all around the world, not only United States, but in what is happening in Hong Kong, with, for instance, or in Europe with the Brexit and all these kind of separation. We wanted to demonstrate that through the art, but we want to demonstrate that dialogue is possible, and dialogue is the only way to survive in this world. And so we want to share this concept with young generation, and for this reason we are here tonight. And I want to ask the artists mainly their sensation, their feedback, their emotions, and doing this process that is maybe really an experiment, also challenging their psychology. And we asked the psychologist, psychiatrist, and the pedagogist in Naples, at the University of Naples, to write an essay. The essay has been written, and we can send you, because there is no catalog printed, but only a catalog on online catalog. And but we can share also these essays of the professors, so university professors. So who will be the first to talk? And ladies first.
This is Yuki. I'm from Japan. I really enjoyed this project. So thank you for sharing and talking here. It's for me. This project is like a short story written by the 5 painters. So I always think about the story in the canvas. But sometimes it's easy to find a story, just the forward, and I can continue to paint something on it. But sometimes I can't find the common subject in paintings. It's difficult, really difficult for me. But, at that time, I stopped seeking, and oppositely, I tried to talk to the canvas, and also asking what is this, what you want to say. I just tried to talk to the canvas. So I found the space, the communication space in the canvas, and I can finish my work. That is really interesting and unpredictable things in this project. I really enjoy it. So I want to all viewers enjoy the six story or talking to the canvases also. I think all of you the six painters of this project. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
I enjoyed doing the traveling canvas, and I think the thing I was most excited about was, like, I know that for me art is the process of culture making, and so being introduced to other artists for personal space and language was something that I found fascinating, that they're trusting me with their own artwork and allowing me to also be a part of who they are as artists. And I think as an artist who always works alone, having a space where I can feel like I'm 6 other people was really interesting, but psychologically it was also really weird, because like, I wonder what they're thinking, I wonder what their process is, and how is it different than mine? And so you start analyzing all these other ways in how you as an artist create work. How do you ask yourself questions? How do you process your ideas, and then you're faced with the ideas and processes of other paintings. So it's like a mirror, you know, so it was really exciting, and like the psychology behind that was, I found it really amazing, and you know, the ego is gone. And so that was one thing that was like, yes, you know, I can paint over someone's and they're not gonna beat me up, and you know, like this was fun, and I just really enjoyed it, and I was glad to be a part of this. Thank you.
Thank you.
I just want to say that Anna was one of the people where I got a phone call and she said, you have to come over. I remember that, and we stood in front of the piece and I said, this is your job to find your way in. And so sometimes the artists spend a lot of time. They were asked to move the canvases along, to only keep them for 60 days. But
yes.
sometimes it took a lot longer for the artists to find their way into and then out of the work.
I got also an email in which an artist say I am blocked and totally blocked, and for 2 months was blocked completely with the impossibility to go on because was not able to paint, and was blocked. And so I said, okay, it's your job, try to go on. And she, I cannot say who is, and so she
Is she in the room?
was able to overcome and came out a great work. So,
Yeah, well, I think it was one of the ones that delayed the project.
because of your residency abroad.
Yeah, I was invited somewhere, and then it was very distracting.
Yeah.
It was an interesting project. I don't remember collaborating in projects with other artists before. Maybe I did, but it was maybe something casual or not planned like this, and not this sort of collaboration that is monitored and orchestrated, and there's some rules too.
Monitored.
So it was an interesting way to start a dialogue. But it's an interesting kind of dialogue because it's kind of like when we used to write letters, and you write a letter and you send it away. Maybe they'll answer, maybe not. So the only communication was the document. And you get the document, and then this is the thing. There's different situations for each one that you get 5. You get to start one. So the way I approached mine was, okay, well, I'm gonna try and give some sort of direction and idea and sending it on its way. And obviously I thought not too much detail at this point because I think it's more sort of indicate or suggest a direction. As the second, the third, and the fourth were the complicated ones. I thought the first one was hard. Those in the middle already came with work from somebody else. So again, I sat in front of it for 2 months, or maybe 3, or I don't know. And so it's approaching the project in the practice in a completely different way than you approach your own. So there's somebody else had something to say, and there's a story there, a beginning of the story. So what I did is I approached it with reverence for somebody else's work, and also not try and see what they were trying to tell me, but what was the idea laid out there and the open ends. What kind of physical room do I have to work, and of course, you start thinking of palette and color and see what would be complementing or not. And then there's the last one that you get to finish, and this is the one. But there's so much work on it already. So how do you just sort of, what I did is I just had to abandon the idea that was my canvas to finish. So to me, it became, this is the canvas that, this is the last one for me, and that's it. I mean, I didn't want to put my imprint on it or, do something really crazy or obliterating. because there was just too much heaviness and message and content on it. So there's a different, approaches to different canvas. And at some point also I thought about, artists, I don't know, 40,000 years ago that walked into a cave and found something. And then they put a signature or they added to it and then they left. They didn't know what was going to happen. 500 years later, somebody else comes. So to me, it was a little bit of that sort of communication, and with a long spans of time in between, where the message there is the essence, and it's there for you, coded. So an interesting exercise for me, and I learned a lot about the way that I approach my own work, and see how other colleagues approach their own work. And how do they see their work in the context of other artists too, and see how do you place yourself in it. And if you want prominence or you want a collaboration of composition, etc. So very interesting project, and I'm really, really happy to have participated. And thank you to the curator.
But I really appreciate to participate in this fantastic project through Cynthia, Jules, and Mikacho, and thank you very much. And for me, when I was picked up the artist of this project of one of five, and then I heard about the story of this project, and then she said, at the time when I picked up, I didn't know anybody. I didn't know that any other four artists, their background or their philosophy. I didn't know anything. Just only the canvas arrived to my place and then show how they are. And then, when I look at the painting, and then most of the big, of course, with the white canvas is very easier to paint to start. But still, at the same time, I need to think about after this, 4 other artists paint on this. So what should I do as a first? But still not so hard compared to other paintings. Paint on other artists already made. Then, the beginnings. I thought that this project might be some utopia of the artist, like happy harmony paintings. But in fact, every piece is not so happy for me. It's so hard to paint on other artists. That is, I need, I need to paint on other artists' history or philosophy or thoughts. I must paint on it or not. But I have to do something on painting, and then I thought this kind of a game is kind of hiding in psychologically, not only harmony. This is just like fighting the artist. Like one artist do like this, and then I do like I want to do like this, but this is fighting, and then how I control my psychologically my inner world. But at the same time, I really respect other 4 artists, and then I really show this painting until the end. And so, how can I do on the paintings? And then I learned the fighting and the respecting is coexist in art. In our real life, the politically or economically or religions always cannot get together, always fighting in this world. But in our art, even though we're fighting, but we coexist as this. And then I learned this might be some hope of our future, I saw. Yeah, and then this this year I learned most of through these paintings. Yeah. It's okay? Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
So we want to invite you with Mika to talk to the artists and to look very closely at the works and to also read their statements about the process and enjoy the time with us here today. So thank you.
Thank you for coming.